Hello, everybody, and I would like to welcome you to another episode of Education Nation. I'm your host, Tim Swain, and today we are going to talk about Zoom for teachers. The last time that we spoke, I did Zoom for parents, and we talked about all the little ins and outs, the little do's and don'ts, all the information that parents should be knowledgeable on when it comes to their child Zooming, whether it's Zooming with a teacher or Zooming with a friend or somebody else. So tonight, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you from a teacher standpoint. So this is for teachers. And the web page that you're seeing right now is a web page that is put out by Zoom, the actual company that has created this video conferencing software. And so to reach this page, all you got to do is just type in School Administrator's Guide to Rolling Out Zoom, and it will come right up. So let's get on with the presentation. With the recent closures of school due to COVID-19, Zoom has become a pretty integral part to the teacher's way of getting the lessons to their students. Zoom was a very small company and primarily used for businesses. Businesses went ahead and had subscriptions and used this video conferencing software. And with the advent of COVID-19, Zoom went ahead and provided any educator who had an educational email address with a free account. And their usage skyrocketed exponentially. But what happened is with anything new, a lot of schools, or I wouldn't say a lot, I would say like most of the schools, jumped on the Zoom bandwagon, and their district offices, their administrators said, oh my gosh, this is a great tool for our teachers to use to video conference with kids. Yeah, go ahead and use it. But the vetting process was not there. And what has happened is teachers have run into a lot of issues using Zoom for their lessons. They have run into disciplinary issues. They have run into students taking over the sessions, sharing pornographic pictures. You name it, it has happened to staff members. It got so bad that the state of New York, their Department of Education, basically said, you're not using Zoom. Don't use Zoom. And so what's happened now is there's been a lot of articles. There's been a lot of people who have basically, gone on social media and have told their stories as to these situations that have happened. I can remember when our school lockdowns just started. And I had been using Zoom for a few weeks before that. The college district that I work for in the evenings, they were very proactive, and they had a plan as soon as we closed for this COVID-19. We had a week off, and it was a week of intense training. And a lot of training was the do's and don'ts regarding Zoom. And so I was pretty inept onto what was going on ahead of the curve. And I'd been using it for a while. And I was talking to one of my friends, and he was telling me about this situation that he had, that his administrator had encouraged his teachers to start Zooming with his classes. And like a good employee, he started doing that, and he ran into some pretty bad issues, some pretty bad disciplinary issues. And, he went back to the school, and he was like, hey, this is what's happening. And what kind of discipline is going to happen to these kids? And the school kind of went, oh, geez, we never thought of that. So when it comes to brand new technology, brand new software, a school district, and this needs to come from the district office, needs to vet these programs. They need to go through with a fine-tooth comb, and they need to look at all the little ins and outs, and they need to get guidance from the company, and they need to set up some procedures and some protocols for running these programs. One of the most important protocols that I think a school district has to do, they should do, and a lot of them do not do this, they need to set up Zoom through their own district web system. Every school district has a secure web system where all of the software programs that are on the internet are funneled through, and where kids have to be registered in the school district, and they have to go through some different security procedures in order to get to these programs. And these programs are basically put on lockdown. And that is just a must. I know in my area, there was one district out of many who did that. They went ahead and they purchased the Zoom program, these Zoom licenses, and they're running it through their school internet system. And they're having very, very few issues. But most of the schools that I know around here are just having teachers go, I like to call the World Wide Web the Wild Wild West. And these teachers are going to the www, the World Wide Web, that Wild West, and they're going out to Zoom. And I'm not saying Zoom is a bad program. I'm not saying it's a good program. It's very useful, but it's out in that www world. And there's some security protocols that you as a teacher, you as an administrator can be working through and pretty much locking down your sessions that you're having with kids. So tonight we're gonna talk about a few of these, a few things that you can do. But I think the most important thing that teachers can do is talk with your administrators, talk with your district office, and see what type of protocols that they have in place, policies and procedures regarding discipline, how to handle different things. I would just say that's the first thing that you need to do as a teacher before you start emailing your kids and go, hey, join me on Zoom and we're going to do this math lesson. That will doing it that way, it's going to be chaotic. So the very first thing that I want to go and talk about is that every teacher needs to obtain parental consent. Now, I know a lot of districts, and ours included, the first day packets have a video release, and that parents read through it, and they either give permission for students to get onto the internet at school, permission to use the school computers, permission to have information posted about their child on the website or their picture. So this is pretty well standard protocol for all districts. My suggestion is that I would get additional parental consent before you start Zooming with your classes. No matter if those parents have signed that video release or not, you need to get something in writing, and it can be very simple as an email that you send to your parents, and they respond back, yes, I give permission. There are different messaging tools that different schools have. I know that one school district uses a program called Remind or called Parent Square, where you can send a type of permission slip to parents and they can electronically consent, or speak to that parent on the phone and get a verbal and document that and keep that documentation. It's basically your job as a teacher to obtain that additional parental consent. There's a lot of laws when it comes to child online privacy protection. And as you can see right there, there's the Child Online Privacy Protection Act, and there's other laws that require minors, students under 18, in these types of settings, requires parental consent. So please make sure and you get that. I can't stress that enough. Also, you want to make sure that these accounts, because when students join your lessons, they are going to have to sign up for an account. And so it would be like I was saying, I think it's in the best interest of every school district to have an overall Zoom account and run it through their secure web system. So therefore, the school district and the technology department can control the emails, the students that have access to that. So please make sure that that you get parental permission, and that these accounts that are created, that they're pretty much done through they call it a school subscribers account. It's basically an account through the school district, and it's run that way. So definitely that would be great. And again, talk with your administrator, talk with your school district about that. The other thing that as a teacher is that when you create your meetings, we're going to go over some things at what you can do. And one of the most important things that you can do as a teacher when you are starting to run your meeting and send out the website and start to see kids is that you only allow your own students into that Zoom meeting that you run. What I do is I require all of my students, and these are college kids. I want to be perfectly clear. I teach at two different levels. I teach at the community college level, where we have been using Zoom for a couple months now. And I also teach at the secondary level, high school students, where our district has encouraged our teachers to run these Zoom meetings, but I'm not going to, okay? I have told my staff that my fellow teachers that I will not Zoom with the high school students. And the reason is there's just too many issues that have occurred. But when I Zoom with my adults, and these protocols that I'm going to kind of go through, these are the same protocols that if you decide to Zoom with your secondary students or your middle school kids or even your elementary school kids, that you can follow. And what I do is I require all of my students that when they create, when they go ahead and they log in to their Zoom account, there's a username that the teacher will see when they join. There's a little video screen and it'll have their name. And I require all my students to use the name that they use in registering for my class, so the name that's on my roll sheet. And I've had some students where they have been in my waiting room, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. They have been sitting in my waiting room because they did not follow my instructions. And then after the meeting, I'll get an email and they'll say, hey, I was waiting, and did we have a Zoom? I was like, yeah. And were you screen name blah, 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 blah? Yeah. Okay. What did I tell you? I told you need to register using your name that's on the roll sheet. So they get it pretty quickly. So definitely only allow users to join that are in your class. Don't look at someone's Zoom screen and go, well, I think if you have any doubts, you don't let them into your lesson. And you make sure that the parents understand that and the kids understand that. Make sure that's perfectly clear. All right. Also, what you can do is you can enable, when you are setting up your meeting ahead of time, you can require that anyone who participates has to basically sign into their Zoom account. And if you are using a school-run Zoom account and through the school internet system, it should already be done that the only students that have access to that are the ones that have the legitimate school email addresses. But if you don't have that school account, please make sure that you set up to where you require your participants to sign in to their Zoom account before attending meetings. That's just an added security measure, and it's a way to monitor who and identify who's there. So definitely, you can, when you set up your Zoom meetings, you do have that option. It's just a click of a box. Okay. You can also, as a host, you can again require your kids to register, okay, for a Zoom account using their school email address, but you can also approve the people that can come into your meeting. All right, I'm going to talk about wait rooms right now, waiting rooms. What a waiting room is just like what a waiting room is at a doctor's office. You go, you sign into your Zoom account, and you pretty much are in a virtual waiting room. And so what happens is, you as the host, all right, you will get an alert, and you are able to open up a smaller window and see what students are waiting to get into your Zoom class. And it will show all of their screen names. And so you can go through and you can go down the list and you can see who's in that waiting room, and you can approve. And it's just a simple click. Yep, she's in my class, boom, I'll approve. And then once you approve that student, they will go ahead and join the meeting. So it's a simple click of a box, and it requires your participants, before they get into your Zoom lesson, your Zoom meeting, you have to approve them to come in, and it's called enable waiting rooms. So definitely I would make sure that you set that up. There are also some other security controls that you can use right here. Lock the meeting, all right? And so in essence, what you can do is that when you've started your meeting, you can go ahead and you can lock the meeting. And when you lock the meeting, it's like locking the door of the classroom. Hey, I started my lesson and you got locked out. Sorry, you're late, okay? One thing I want to kind of talk about a little bit, I'm going to go a little bit off topic here just because this just kind of talking about this locking the door type thing. It's a good practice to do, but also you need to remember that when students, this whole online learning thing, this is brand new for teachers, this is brand new for parents, this is brand new for students. And so I would suggest that, until you kind of get your policies and your guidelines set with your students and they kind of know the expectations, be a little bit lenient on locking that meeting. I still kind of to this day a little bit with my adults. For the most part, they're really good about showing up 5 to 10 minutes early, and I start running my meeting, and then I give it about 10 minutes, and then that kind of hits the stragglers, and then I will go ahead and lock the meeting. So just be careful on that. This is all new for everybody, and so until you kind of get those procedures set with your kids, just lack of a better term, kind of be cool about it. But definitely get into the habit of locking that meeting, because I would say that when you start going on your lessons, like a lot of you teachers are a lot like me, You start going on your lessons and you're focused on that lesson. And if you keep having kids kind of coming and going and wanting to come in and stuff, it really disrupts that. So definitely look at that. Lock the meeting. Another feature that you should use is you have the ability to expel a participant. So you have a participation or participants menu on screen when you are Zooming, and you can go ahead and you can go ahead and expel that student for a variety of reasons. You can give them a warning, and then you can kick them out. And if you lock the meeting, they can't get back in. If they try to get back in and you have your weight room enabled, then they will just be kind of in the weight room. So I would definitely look and make sure that as you're teaching, you know how to expel a student from your lesson. Very important. And it only takes 1 or 2 times. And then the rest of the students will kind of get the picture. So definitely take a look at that. Here's another idea that I think is very important. You can prevent participants from sharing their screen. There's menus when everyone uses Zoom and where they can start sharing screens. And so what you can do is you can go ahead and lock that down to where it's only you that's able to share a screen. There's been quite a few situations that I've heard of firsthand from teachers that I work with where the teacher is doing their lesson and they are kind of focused on their whiteboard that's being projected on the screen, and then other students are sharing things that they shouldn't, and it's the teacher really had no idea what was going on. So definitely prevent your students from screen sharing. All right, and again, it's in the controls where you can just, it's a simple click. Another thing also is that you can go ahead and do an on hold. There's going to be times where you just need a moment. There's times when I do these Zoom things and I hit pause and I'll go get a drink of water or something like that. But what you can do as a teacher is that you can go ahead and you can put everyone on hold. And so again, that's another control, and it will go ahead and it will disable the video. And you can do that for individual students, or you can do that for the whole class, to where if you just need to kind of put the whole class on hold, it will disable everything, and then you can kind of go do your thing real quick in your private moment, and then you can start right back up again. Another feature is where you can disable video. So you have, as the teacher, as the host, you can go ahead and control whether the participants, the video, their video projecting themselves to the whole class is on or not. How Zoom kind of works is where you have your screen as the teacher, and you have all the students, and you can see all the students. It's kind of like the Brady Bunch, at the beginning of Brady Bunch. You know, if you had 9 kids, it'd be the Brady Bunch. But you know, you could have a lot of kids, and so what you can do is, what I would suggest is just disable all of their videos, and then when they enter the meeting, you want to make sure and that when they enter the meeting that their microphone is on mute. And what you can do is you can kind of mute or unmute, or you know, they can press a space bar if if they're allowed to have that control and to control it themselves. So definitely you can disable their video. You can mute or unmute all of just like one person or all of them. And so this will definitely, both of these controls will prevent a lot of distracting and inappropriate things that happen verbally or visually, okay? Here's another thing, this is huge, and this happened to a colleague of mine. When you are Zooming, you have on your screen, you have a chat function. Now, I use it because there are some times where I have students, my college students, and that's how they communicate with me, through chat. Either for whatever reason, their audio, their microphone on their computer's not connecting, or they don't want to speak in front of people, or they've disabled their video, and they will run their questions to me. But they can also do a chat with the whole class, and they can do a private chat. They could go on and just do a message to somebody else, and the host, the teacher, has no clue. So definitely for secondary students, disable that private chat. You can go ahead, and that's just a simple control setting that you can do. So please do that, because I've heard of some situations that have gotten pretty out of hand, and the teacher had no idea that these kids were private chatting each other, and there were some pretty crazy things that were going on. So definitely look into that. You can also restrict group chat. You can limit that chat, and that kind of goes along with the private chat as well. So there's certain settings, again, that you really want to regulate those chats. I would definitely, before you as a teacher get going, and if you have any questions and your administrator or your school district cannot answer, definitely contact Zoom. I in no way work for Zoom. I'm not getting paid by Zoom. It's just that I've used it. I've used it for quite a while now, a couple months now, and I'm pretty proficient at it. And so I've just reading more and more situations that teachers are having, or I'm having conversations with my own colleagues. And, I just wanted to, talk about my knowledge and how I've been doing it. Another thing that I would like to also talk about is there's an idea, or not an idea, but there's what we call Zoom bombing. There's this new term, that's the word I was looking for, and it's called Zoom bombing. And Zoom bombing is where people out in the wild, wild west, in the WWW world, World Wide Web, they get a hold of your meeting IDs or your meeting links, and they show up and they cause havoc. I was reading an article not too long ago about a young lady who was in college, and she was Zoom bombing her teachers from the high school that she graduated from, and that was basically what she did during the day. She would go and she would bomb these lessons and stuff, and it causes issues. So definitely my suggestion is that when you are creating your meeting, and you're going and you're setting up your meeting. Definitely there are some security features that you need to click uh, that will kind of prevent this whole Zoom bombing issue. So here's kind of the initial settings that when you are setting up a meeting, you can put your topic up here at the top, your date and your time. And what I wanted to talk about is here some of the features that you could use to prevent this whole Zoom bombing is don't use your same personal meeting. This is the same. If you use this, this is your personal ID meeting number that is assigned to you. It doesn't change. You want to make sure and generate your ID, generate it, the computer generates it. And what will happen is that every time you make up a new meeting, it will generate the meeting ID number, and so students can use that to get into your class. It will also generate a different web link each time. If you use the same ID and the same web link for all of your meetings, those get out. And then these Zoom bombers get a hold of these, and they just kind of all throughout the day, I'll click this and see who's going. I'll click this and see who's going. And there's this whole social media kind of underground where all of these ID meetings and all of these links are being shared. And these people just, oh yeah, I get a batch of these and I'll just start clicking and see if someone's in a class, and I'll ruin it. Another thing that you want to use, you want to require your students to use a password. And then you can go ahead and when you click that, you can go ahead and make up a password. And then and then you change that every time so that every one of your meetings, your IDs and your links are generated. They're different each time, but you're also doing a different password. With the video right here, participants, you can let them have their video on, or you can just cut them off right there. And before you even start the meeting, set it up to where nobody will be able to have video and be able to share screens and then, have some issues. Down here where it says audio, I always set up these meetings using computer audio, but people can phone in as well. That causes a whole other issue right there where you've got some on video and some on phone. I would definitely stay away from that telephone. I would just do computer audio. And then down here at the bottom, the advanced options, what I was talking about before. You have the enabling the waiting rooms where you have to approve your students to join the meeting, and they're in the waiting room before. You can enable people to join before you get online. I enable that just because my students are all in the waiting room, and then I have to approve them. So, there's times where I hop online like 5 minutes before, and I've got like 6 or 7 kids that are in the waiting room. So that's not a big deal. But if you don't enable waiting rooms, yeah, you want to go ahead and unclick that. Muting participants on entry, I do that as well. So that when they come in, they're already on mute. It really cuts down on the disturbances. It cuts down on the background noise, and then you can even get into further meeting controls where you can just mute them all, and then you're the one that unmutes them and what have you. Well, that's kind of all I have for this section regarding Zoom and Zoom for Teachers. And so I hope that this has helped you and given you some ideas to kind of think about. So please, everyone, be safe. And I really appreciate you listening and watching, and we will definitely talk soon.